Okay, in this video we're going to talk about three different things mainly. We're going to talk about creating a new file, opening files, files, and saving those files. To get started, we'll go ahead and start it with a new file. Simply go to File, New, and you'll get your new dialog box. And if you didn't notice that when I clicked on New here, it has a keyboard shortcut next to it, which is Control N. And for all those using Macs, it's not Control, it's going to be Command N. So if I hit Control N, that'll pull up the new document window here. And the first field we get to choose is a name for your new document. For this, we'll put something awesome like Josh's wonderful drawing. I guess that'll work. And moving on, going down below here, we have custom presets. There isn't a whole lot about these, but they do kind of explain themselves. US paper will change down to the defaults with 8.5 inches by 11. So 8.5 by 11 at a typical resolution of 300 dpi. A lot of the times I use custom. Feel free to play with all these presets and get a feel for more what they're about. So moving on from there, we'll go back to custom. We set the width over here. You can drag this with your cursor, or over to the right hand side we can pick pixels, inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, and columns. A lot of the times you'll find yourself using pixels, or if you're doing an inches related document you could switch over to inches, but I use pixels a whole lot. So we'll create a document that says, I don't know, we'll put width of 500 pixels by 600 pixels high. And keep in mind that when you do change these, you can't have 1 inches and 1 pixels. So we'll keep that the same. Color mode, RGB. RGB is normally used for the web. So a lot of what you see on the web is RGB. We can go to bitmap, which is more of a, how do I say this, a very simple color scheme. Grayscale is grayscale, black and white pretty much. CMYK color is for printing. And lab color is a pretty complicated color scheme, but it's mostly used for in-depth work with luminosity and things like that. So you won't be using a whole lot of lab color. We'll just get that out of the way that way. 8-bit mode, 16-bit mode, and 32 bits. Mostly you're going to be using 8-bit because watch what happens now. Over the image size, this is the estimated size that our document is going to start out as. If I switch this to 32-bit mode, it gets huge. And so that's any indication of how large your files can be. That's why I kind of stay away from it, and I'll stick with 8-bit. We can do pretty much everything we need to get done with 8-bit. Okay, and we won't worry about advanced because this is an advanced tutorial. All right, now the background contents, we can either choose white, transparent, or background color. And our background color is the black right there. But for now, we'll just leave it white, and you hit OK. And that creates a new document. Each new document you have open will show up with the little tab up here with its own independent X, and we can close it with the X, and just like you would any other window. Now this creates our layers over here. We'll talk more about layers later on, but this is how you basically open a document. Now if I wanted to save this document, I can go to File, Save, or Save As. We haven't made any changes to the document yet, so there's nothing to save. But if I were to take the brush and and put a little squiggly line here, now I'll get to be able to save it. And by default, it saves as a PSD. A PSD is a Photoshop file which saves all the layers and all the settings and everything else that you'd like to keep saved. It doesn't save it as a viewable image by anybody who doesn't have Photoshop though. So we'll save this out to my desktop and we'll label it. We'll just keep it the same label, and we'll click Save. Now if I go to my desktop, you'll see the Photoshop file right there on my desktop. Okay, now if we go back into Photoshop and say we want to save it as something else, we'll want to save it as a JPEG so that everybody else could view it. JPEG is a very common picture format. It's what I use all the time. It's what you'll find yourself mostly using, and a lot of the photos that you will be editing you'll find as JPEGs. So, and if you want to know anything more about these further extensions, you can look them up on the web. They're really easy to figure out what they do, and you're going to notice that you won't be using a lot of these. Okay, so we'll just keep it. We'll switch it over to JPEG for now, and we'll click Save. Now this gives our JPEG dialog box, which lets us increase the quality all the way up there. It gives a preview of how big the file is going to be. All right, and then a lot of times I'll just keep it as a large file, but if you want to decrease the quality of the picture, you can do so by just clicking and dragging. Okay, we won't worry much about this. This is also kind of more of a, I don't know, more of an advanced feature that I don't ever use too much when I'm creating basic things. So do that, hit OK, and that also will go back to the desktop, and now it has a JPEG that we can just double click on and open it up. So we'll close that, and now you know how to create a new one, and you know how to save the document. Now, if I wanted to open a document, what are the options I have here? I have 3 different options, one more that I use more than others. The first option is to go to File, Open, and then browse to your file, and click on the file and click Open. Now, this is my cat. For all of you are wondering, yes, I have a cat. Most internet users have cats out there, and we boast about our cats all the time. His name is Boss, by the way, if you couldn't tell by the file name. So File Open is one way to go. Now I can close this. Another way to go is to double click in the gray background. This doesn't work for Macs because you don't have the gray background. So double clicking there will produce the same open dialog box, and I can click OK on Boss and click Open like that. Okay, and the third most common way to open Photoshop documents is to simply click and drag into Photoshop, and that will do the same thing. Now this all applies as the same as if we wanted to open multiple pictures. So if I click and drag both of these in here and let go, it opens up in 2 separate tabs. And so yeah, if you couldn't tell, we had a little photo shoot with the cat. He was a good model, and I wouldn't trade him for the world. Okay, so that's how to open, that's how to save, and that's how to create a new document in Photoshop.